Good morning. We begin our worship this morning with words of the historical Buddha. Be ye lamps unto yourselves. Be your own confidence. Hold to the truth within yourselves as to the only lamp. Let us worship together.
Please join in singing our
Opening hymn.
opening hymn, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blowing the wind, rise in the sea, rule in the hand, giving life the shape of justice, roots only flows, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Good morning. My name's Mary, and it's the first time I'm being the lay liturgist, so I'm excited about that. I've been coming to the Unitarian Church for, 16, 17 years. I grew up in Steelton, and I think I came here for the Clover Grove group once, and I was like, oh, it's like a non-Christian church. That's cool. I just became a member, too, like a couple weeks ago, so that's cool. And I'm also working with teens for religious exploration. I live in Harrisburg with my partner Giannis, who you may have seen around here, and we have 2 cats, Ishtar and Leonardo DiCaprio. Whether you're a member or a visitor joining us in person, or you are worshiping virtually, we are so happy that you've chosen to join us this morning. For our worshipers online, a Zoom online coffee hour will follow services starting at 11:30 a.m. For those of you here in person, we will have coffee hour in person in the common room downstairs. Please speak with Michael McCullough if you're interested in helping with coffee hour. We are so happy you have chosen to worship with us, and we welcome you to our fellowship hours and any other in-person or online activities held by UCH. In the spirit of the transformative power of community in all its forms, I am happy to welcome you to UCH. Whoever you are, wherever you live, whomever you love, whatever you do for a living, you are welcome at the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg. Please join me in reading of the unison affirmation printed in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is our gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
As we light this chalice, we take refuge in the best parts of ourselves, that which allows us to move in the world with love and compassion, that which moves us to actions that bring us together. Let this flame represent the oneness we feel in this room and with all, so that we may act to end suffering within the interdependent web of all life of which we are a part. And may we feel that connection within ourselves, both in moments of light and in moments of darkness, so that the flame may be rekindled within us when we need it the most.
Today's story is After the Fall, How Humpty Dumpty Got Back Up Again by Dan Senat. My name is Humpty Dumpty. This was my favorite spot, high up on the wall. I know, it's an odd place for an egg like me, but I loved being close to the birds. Then one day, as you all know, I fell. I'm sort of famous for that. Folks called it the Great Fall, which sounds a little grand. It was just an accident, but it really changed my life. Fortunately, all the king's men managed to put me back together. Well, most of me. There were some parts of me that couldn't be healed with bandages and glue. After that day, I became afraid of the heights. I was scared that it kept me from enjoying some of my favorite things. I walked past the wall every day and would think about climbing that ladder again. I really missed the birds and being high above the city. But I could never do it because I knew that accidents can happen. I eventually settled for watching the birds from the ground. It wasn't the same, but it was better than nothing. Then one day, an idea flew by. I walk into my workshop and I begin making planes. Making planes was harder than I thought. It was easy to get cuts and scratches, but day after day, I kept trying and trying until I got it just right. My plane was perfect, and it flew like nothing could stop it. I hadn't felt that happy in a long time. It wasn't the same as being up in the sky with the birds, but it was close enough. Unfortunately, accidents happen. They always do. I almost walked away again. But then I thought about all the time I'd spent working on the plane and all the other things that I missed. I decided I was going to climb that wall. But the higher I got, the more nervous I felt. I didn't want to admit it. I was terrified. I didn't look up. I didn't look down. I just kept climbing, one step at a time, until I was no longer afraid. Maybe now you won't think of me as that egg who was famous for falling. Hopefully, you'll remember me as the egg who got back up and learned how to fly. Because life begins when you get back up.
At this time, we invite you to come forward to drop a stone in the water or to light a candle and place it in the sand. This represents a joy or a sorrow that you're holding in your heart. There are forms available to write down a joy or sorrow. Please indicate on the paper if you would like your joy or sorrow to be read aloud at the end of this shared time together. Whether you come forward to share your joy or sorrow silently or keep it in your heart, please know that you are loved and valued and that we care about you and the events in your life. Please come forward if you are so moved.
We have some joys and concerns that were submitted to us before Christmas. The first one comes from Bridget and Eric. The Parkers have lost a family member after a long struggle with cancer. We will miss Papa John and hope we can be a comfort and help to Mimi. From Lisa Erdman, wishes of peace to my cousin Mary, who passed away 2 weeks ago. And I would like to submit a joy from my family that our older daughter Samantha and her 2 children, our grandchildren, moved back from Virginia Beach at the end of November. So they are around here again. May we now enter into the spirit of contemplation with a Tibetan Buddhist prayer. May you be at peace. May your heart remain open. May you awaken to the light of your own true nature. May you be healed. May you be a source of healing for all beings. May it be so. Let us now join in a moment of shared silence as we reflect upon any joys or sorrows that remain in our hearts.
Join in singing number 1007, There's a River Flowing in My Soul.
Hello again. So, the topic for today is you win or you learn. Keva explained to me that this is an idea that even if you lose a fight, a game, $1 million grant funding opportunity, you still learn. Thinking about what she said, I thought to myself, well, I kind of feel like I just learn or I learn. Not that I never win, but that always looking to win isn't the way that I want to live my life. This all reminded me of a quote from the TV show Angel, which is a spin-off of the more well-known show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which I'm obsessed with. Angel is a good vampire. He has a soul. And, of course, he fights evil. But one episode, he has a conversation with the CEO of the evil law firm that he's fighting against. And that villain tells him that for evil, it's not about winning. It's about surviving. As long as there are still bad people, still evil things happening in the world, evil is doing what it wants. Evil has won. This leads Angel to an epiphany. Epiphany is the title of the episode, where he realizes that he has to do the same thing as the CEO said. He will never win against evil. So therefore, he simply has to just keep fighting back every day. The quote he says that encapsulates this thought sometimes is a little hard to grasp, but if nothing we do matters, then all that matters is what we do. Because that's all there is, now, today. If there is no bigger meaning to life, then the smallest act of kindness is the greatest thing in the world. I love and I hate this quote at the same time, because I find it very hard to unfocus my attention from the future. I'm sure you can relate to that. I grew up with childhood trauma, and when it hurts to stay present in the present, you always end up looking towards the future. If only I had X, I'll be happy when. It was really hard for me when I moved out of my parents' house and realized that there was no I'll be happy when, because my happiness did not depend at all on other people. It depended on me and how I perceived what was happening to me. Man can make a heaven out of hell or a hell out of heaven. All that matters is what we do. Going back to my favorite show, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I find myself often tempted in my life to hit things with a big hammer to make them go away, very much like Buffy does. But in the series, Buffy's mom dies, not by the hand of some devil or demon, but from a blood clot. And we witness Buffy losing, being forced to learn about the reality of existence, and she can't change that no matter her superpowers. And it's the fact that someday there will be no more existence. We can do absolutely nothing about it. So this leaves me thinking, what do I want to do with my own life then? If it's impossible to win this game of life, then how do I learn from it? I have yet to hear Keva's sermon for us today, so I don't know quite what it will be. I'm sure it's going to be really great. But I would hope all of you can remember you win or you learn. And also, sometimes you learn and you learn. Because if there is no greater meaning, if there is no winning, it's not like any of us are getting out of this life alive, then the smallest act of kindness is the greatest thing in the world. Thank you.
I would like us all to give her a round of applause because you nailed it. Unless you've been up here for the first time doing a member reflection, you don't realize sometimes how difficult that can be, but thank you. It was awesome. You win or you learn. Either way, you win. Those are big words coming from me because I don't necessarily consider myself to be an optimist. I like to think of myself as a realist, depending on my mood. We tend to think in opposites. You win or you lose. But wait, sometimes you tie, right? Or we think Quitters never win and winners never quit. But what about when you quit smoking or when you stop some other unhealthy habit? Doesn't quitting mean that you win? Maybe we need to think a little bit about this whole winning thing. What does it mean that you've won? That you got the gold? That you annihilated the opposition? That you kicked all of the asses? This phrase that is the title of the sermon, "You win or you learn," is something that I learned in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which I started in my 40s, having never done a martial art in my life. What I learned in the 2-ish years that I did it changed my life. The phrase, "you win or you learn," is used in this sport to remind players that regardless of whether you win or lose a match, you can recall the experience of each match so that you learn from it and get better for the next time. In fact, it's such a prevalent idea that it's transformed how the sport is played. And it's realized that losing is a better potential for growth than winning. After all, winners are less likely to look back on their win and pick it apart to learn from their experience in just about any situation. Can you imagine a sport promoting the idea that losing could be better than winning? Especially one that is so, let's just say the words, testosterone driven. I felt that part of it regardless of my biology, and it's certainly an activity that brings out any natural aggression one may have. It's the main reason that I was so attracted to the sport. For me, someone with natural aggression who was always told, "You're too aggressive for a girl, you're too aggressive for a woman, you're too loud, you talk too much, you're too angry," maybe. I needed an outlet for my aggression. I needed to take the bear for a run so the bear didn't run after me, as the saying goes, I think, something like that. And what I learned, I've adopted into my everyday life. Perhaps you could too. You win or you learn. I say this phrase all the time. I say it to my child. Sometimes she doesn't appreciate it. Saying it helps me to return to center, to be less frustrated when things go wrong. Its application is far-reaching. Try it sometime. You win or you learn, but you use it responsibly, because it can result in making other people angry if you do it snarkily. I may know from experience. Tap, snap, or nap. This is another jiu-jitsu phrase. This refers to a situation where someone is attempting a move that will result in the opponent submitting, a chokehold, an armbar, etc. The phrase tap, snap, or nap is employed because those are basically the 3 options you have when someone has you in a submission hold. You can either tap out, you do like that. Sometimes you just do it once. Usually it's if you really want to tap out. Or there's another option. You could allow the opponent to snap the body part they're currently holding. Seen it happen. If you're into that, Or you can go to sleep because you just got choked into unconsciousness. It sounds fun, right? But keep in mind that in this situation, the person being submitted has choices. In fact, you could say that they are the ones in control. True in life as well as sport. And just as a side, I am a little bummed that I had to stop doing the sport. I had some physical issues. I really had this signature phrase that I wanted to use, and I never got to use it. It was, "You just got tapped by someone's grandma." I'm hoping I can find a way to use that at some point. So, the key to being comfortable with winning even though you lost and making a decision regarding submission all come back to you and what you hold to be important. Your center, your fulcrum, your ability to balance yourself and or maybe to pivot is dependent on having a point of contact with something that does not move. What is that exactly? Where is your center? Well, we could debate this for a while, since there are so many ideas about where that is. If only we were a Tootsie Roll Pop or some other round thing, like, say, the Earth, then it would be easy to spot the center. So where is ours as human beings? Is it your solar plexus, your belly button, your hara, that's the area below your belly button where you put a martial arts belt? Is it your chest, your heart, your soul? Maybe your true self. What's this true self thing? Well, if you ask 20 Buddhists, you will likely get 20 different answers. What I've come to understand about true self is that it is the essence of us that never changes. It never leaves. It is the ground of our being, or the true ground of our being. I didn't come up with that, it's a Buddhist term. Who we are inherently is really about what we are. Who we are is more our ego self. And the ego self is constantly changing for one reason or another. And what happens when our ego takes a huge hit? There was a time in my nursing career when I had major health issues, severe enough to threaten my ability to continue in the field. When this happened, I was devastated and I felt like a part of me was being ripped away. I didn't know who I was anymore. It was something we call an eruption in the psyche. It changed me forever. Well, my ego self anyway. What have you experienced that has done something similar to you? A job change, a relationship change, the loss of someone you love, retirement? Do you wear a bunch of different hats, the proverbial ones, not the actual ones, and wonder if any of them are actually you? Spoiler alert, they're not. The good news is we control these hats, even if we think we don't. After all, even when it seems like there is no choice, there is always my favorite go-to, refusal. In other words, non-compliance. The rebel in me savors refusing, sometimes just for the sake of refusing. For example, my husband's shaking his head, yes. For example, because I'm in the medical field, I know that I can refuse anything, so I do. Please follow me to the scale, Ms. Brown. I often reply, no, just mark that I refused. And some of them will ask why. So I give the Cordell Affelt response that I learned years ago. I just don't want to. And recognizing that there are times when refusal comes with its own consequences. So let's leave that for now. This thing with all the hats is the point I think we all must learn sooner or later. We aren't any of them, and they are therefore impermanent. We can take them off. We can trade them in. We can burn them to the ground. We can tell someone where they can shove them if they're becoming a method of manipulation. But none of them are us. What are we then? Well, I don't have any magic answers on that. But what I do know is that if you think about it, the unchanging parts of us are the ones that we can depend on. The aspects of each of us that's connected to everything does not worry about what other people think. It doesn't have deadlines, and it doesn't fear loss of control or loss of life. It just is. On my altar at my house, I have a framed quote that says, "My being is enough. I don't have to do anything to prove my worth." I'm going to take this for a walk while I grab my water bottle. I think the one moment when I can personally attest to being completely at one with my own true self was during what was as close to a near-death experience as I have ever personally come. I've never talked publicly about the entire story. Excuse me while I aspirate. But I think it's time. So back in 2013, I was having major health issues, and I mentioned earlier that I had health issues that were threatening my career. Well, they were finally attributed to several separate but independent issues. In August of 2013, I had what was considered to be a routine diagnostic procedure called a cystoscopy with retrograde pyelogram. It's a lot of words. It's where they look in your bladder and then shoot dye into your kidneys. What most people know who have already heard this story is that I left the procedure feeling fine. I went to CVS to pick up the post-procedure medications, and in CVS, in the cart aisle, my right kidney ruptured. It felt like a sword going through me, although I don't know exactly what a sword feels like going through you. I could just imagine. An ambulance came and got me and took me to a different hospital than the one I had left an hour earlier. I ended up having another procedure, spending the night, and it took about 2 months to recover. It changed my view on many things, including how I define number 10 out of 10 pain. That was more like a 20 out of 10. And migraines are now for me a number 9, because there's nothing that has ever come as quite close to that. What people don't know about this story is that when I was going to sleep prior to the first procedure, I had this ominous feeling. If you've had those before, you know how overwhelming they can be. I felt like something awful was about to happen. I felt like I might be dying. I felt like maybe I wasn't going to wake up from that procedure. And what was the most striking is that I was fine with it. I was completely at peace. When I realized that there was nothing I could worry about anymore. As I slipped into anesthesia, I had no control. But I felt the presence of a part of me that was ongoing, whatever you may want to call that. I wasn't worried at all. I was relieved, at peace. It took a while to remember that this had happened, given the gravity of the complications. And I think I also feared that if I talked about it, I would be judged. How could you be at peace when you are leaving all the people you love? I think I understand it now, because we are all of us impermanent. But there is something in us that isn't. And that part is stable, regardless of the situation, regardless of wins or losses. My true center, my true self, was trying to tell me that something life-changing was about to happen, but that I was going to be okay. Some of that was initially lost in translation, but I got it eventually. Personally, I'd like to tap into that aspect of myself as much as possible, to support the part of me that's always changing so it doesn't feel so untethered. Couldn't we all use more of that? So again, where is that center? What is that center? I'm not sure I have an answer for you. What I do have is an expression of hope that we can all find ways to access it. Some spiritual traditions recommend prayer or meditation to find a place of stillness. Is that the center? Is it the fulcrum we can count on to be the place of balance when we get knocked around? Here's what I do know. When we are looking for physical balance, there are lots of factors. Physical well-being is incredibly complex and includes things like muscle coordination, vestibular health, which is your inner ear, physical sensation, allowing us to feel where the ground is, called proprioception, and brain health. I recently had a bout of vertigo that lasted about 6 months, all because the tiny little crystals in my ears decided to be non-compliant. How easily we can be knocked off balance physically. And we have a pretty good idea medically what can cause that. Now think about mental, psychological, emotional, spiritual balance. I'm not sure there's anything more complex to that and all the related factors. We are no longer in the realm of diagnostic procedures. And the most fundamental aspect of balance is knowing the center point. Otherwise, how would you even know there's something wrong? You can come from a place of believing that your center means getting to know yourself. But I would argue that this is only one part of it. Because our ego selves do change over time, some more than others certainly, and that's okay. Change is scary. It makes us refocus. It makes us recenter. But it is inevitable. Finding something in us that is reliable and unchanging is vital finding the fulcrum, finding the ground of being, not built on sand or any other shifting substance you may want to use in this particular analogy. The practice held as basic, fundamental, and necessary, simple yet profound in Buddhism, is the practice of taking refuge. We say the words, "I take refuge in the ground of being, within which I move and live and breathe." We may also say, "I take refuge in my true self." This is a daily practice to remind us that we are ego traveling around attached to something more. The magic of that never ceases to captivate me. I also take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha daily. The Buddha being the Buddha, the Dharma being the teachings, and the Sangha being my faith community. Doing so allows me to recognize that my ego self is being cared for by my true self, that I can depend on things that I am connected to, like the Buddha, the teachings, and my faith community, and I actually have 2 faith communities. What can you take refuge in that will help you feel tethered, cared for, centered? We go through our lives gathering experiences, wins and losses, and we hold them close sometimes. The losses can feel like they outweigh the wins, but do they? What have the losses taught us? Can we allow them to be helpful teachers instead of wielders of punishment? Can we take refuge in a centering force so that we can continue to stay at one with what does not change? Can we find a win in the loss? Can we say these words and mean it? You win or you learn. Either way, you win.
The Unitarian Church of Harrisburg is, as always, a freely gathered church of free people. The church is created, sustained, and supported by you. The ministry continues whether the church building is open or closed. Each month, we share half of our Sunday plate with a local nonprofit organization. For the month of January, UCH will be sharing the plate with Susquehanna Harbor Safe Haven. Susquehanna Harbor Safe Haven is a residential facility offering support and stable housing to men who are or were chronically homeless. It is managed by Christian Churches United of the Tri-County area. For those who wish to contribute online, please see the email with the link for today's service or visit the uchbg.org homepage for options for contributing. For those who are here in the sanctuary, the collection plates will be passed by today's ushers. Your financial support and commitment matter. Please consider giving what you are able.
please join in our closing hymn, number 86, Blessed Spirit of My Life. She's going to play it through once and then sing.
Since you already have the gray book out, if you could turn to number 505, it's a reading in the end. I would like you to read this as the benediction with me, and you can choose at the end to say the word amen or the word that is right for you. Number 505. Let us be at peace with our bodies and our minds. Let us return to ourselves and become holy ourselves. Let us be aware of the source of being, common to us all and to all living things. Evoking the presence of the great compassion, let us fill our hearts with our own compassion towards ourselves and towards all living beings. Let us pray that we ourselves cease to be the cause of suffering to each other. With humility, with awareness of the existence of life and of the sufferings that are going on around us, let us practice the establishment of peace in our hearts and on earth. May it be so.